I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, writing it all out because I need to get it off my chest and maybe make sense of what happened. My name's Jason, and I was married to Lauren for about 6 years. She's always been the kind of woman who loved to be the center of attention, sharp-tongued, quick with a sarcastic remark, and usually quite charming when she wanted to be. We had a decent life, me working in construction, her managing her little boutique, and us trying to keep things happy and normal. But lately, things felt off. It started with small things. She became more distant, less interested in the simple, everyday stuff. Little excuses about being busy at work or tired from running her shop. But she also started going out more, claiming she needed girl time or to visit her friends. I didn't think much of it at first, honestly. I figured everyone gets a little time apart, especially when you've been with someone a long time. But then came the strange stuff. She was acting different around her phone, quick to hide it when I came into the room. I'd catch her sneaking messages or deleting texts. Sometimes I'd notice she'd leave her phone on the table, then run to grab it and stuff it in her purse if I looked in her direction. It was frustrating, but I kept telling myself I was just paranoid, that maybe she was just talking to her sister or an old friend. Still, the nagging feeling of doubt grew more persistent. Then there was the night of the welcome back party I threw. I'd been deployed for almost a year with my buddy Mike. He's a good guy, a little rough around the edges but dependable. He'd just come back from his tour, and I thought it would be nice to do something special for him and us all. Lauren was supposed to be happy for him, excited even. But as the night went on, I noticed she was a little too close with Mike. They were whispering, leaning into each other, laughing a little too hard at jokes that weren't really that funny. She was being extra bitchy to me, snapping at me when I asked her to help with the drinks, but then she'd be all sweet and flirty with Mike in. A flash, that's when I started getting suspicious. I saw her keep looking at her phone during the party, her fingers trembling just a little when she thought I wasn't watching. I didn't say anything then. I wanted to catch her in the act, see if I was just overthinking it. But I also felt this gnawing ache in my stomach, like I already knew what I'd find if I looked closer. That night, I went to the bathroom, checked my phone and saw it, an Instagram message notification from her. I hesitated, then clicked it open. My heart dropped. It was from someone I didn't recognize, but the messages inside made me want to throw up. They weren't just innocent words, flirty, suggestive stuff, even some explicit pictures. And she was sending these to someone named Mike, with emojis and little hearts. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I'd faint. I kept scrolling and saw more screenshots of their conversations, her telling him she missed him, that she was so glad he was back, and how she wanted to see him again soon. My brain froze. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. I'd trusted her. I'd fought for her when she said she was just comforting him because of PTSD or whatever bullshit excuse she told herself. But the truth was clear now. She'd been cheating on me with my best friend, and she'd done it right in our house during what I thought was a celebration of his safe return. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't want to explode in front of everyone. But I knew I had to act. I needed to think, to figure out what I was going to do next. Because this, what I just uncovered, was the kind of betrayal that shatters everything you believe in. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, then kicked when I was down. All the trust, all the years we'd built, gone in an instant. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, trying to hold in my rage and heartbreak, knowing I'd have to face her soon. I just didn't know how I'd do it or what I was going to say. But I knew one thing: my marriage was over, and everything was about to change forever. The next morning I woke up early, the weight of what I found still heavy on my mind. I couldn't get the images out of my head, Lauren giggling with Mike, exchanging those messages, the way she'd lied so easily when I questioned her. I kept asking myself how long this had been going on, how many times she'd betrayed me like this. My stomach was a knot of anger and sadness, and I knew I couldn't just sit on it anymore. I had to confront her, get some answers, and figure out what the hell I was going to do. I waited until she was still asleep, then quietly got out of bed. I needed proof, something concrete, before I said a word. I remembered how she always kept her phone on the nightstand, so I reached over and grabbed it. I unlocked it without her noticing. She left it unlocked half the time because she thought she was so clever. I scrolled through her messages again, looking for anything I might have missed. And what I saw made my blood run cold. There was a string of new DMs from her to Mike, more suggestive than before. They were talking about meeting up, about how much they missed each other, how it just feels so right when we're together. I saw pictures, more explicit, more intimate than I'd ever imagined she'd be with someone outside of me. The worst part, she was lying to my face, telling me she was just friends with him, that she was helping him through PTSD. Yeah, right. The truth was she'd been screwing around with my best friend right under my nose. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. I wanted to scream, to shake her awake and demand she tell me the truth. But I knew that wouldn't get me anywhere. Instead, I took screenshots of everything, every message, every picture, so I'd have proof to show her when I finally talked to her face to face. I also grabbed her phone and kept it in my pocket. I decided I wouldn't confront her right then, not until I figured out what I was going to say. I was too furious to have a calm conversation, but I also knew I needed to catch her in a lie, to see her reaction when I dropped the truth on her. While she was still sleeping, I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. I stared at her, trying to process how she could be so cold, so manipulative. We built a life together, shared vacations, bought a house, had a dog, and she was out there screwing my best friend. It was like a punch in the gut every time I thought about it. I wondered how she could look me in the eyes and lie so blatantly, so effortlessly. Her bitchy attitude, her smart-ass comments, I'd always thought they were just part of her personality. Now I saw they were also part of her game. When she finally stirred, I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her, waiting for her to realize I had her phone. She reached over, yawned, and went to grab it, but I was quicker. I held it out of her reach. Her eyes snapped open, and the moment our gazes met, I saw that flicker of annoyance, of anger. I decided to be direct. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen her messages, her DMs with Mike, the pictures. Her face twisted into a mask of defiance, and she scoffed. "Oh, come on, Jason. You're overreacting. It's just sex. People do stupid shit when they're stressed, especially with all your military crap. I was just comforting him, that's all. You know how PTSD can mess with someone." Her voice was defensive, but I could hear the lie in it. She had always been good at twisting things, making herself the victim, the misunderstood wife. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her it was more than that, that I saw the messages. I told her I wasn't stupid. Her eyes flashed with that bitchy glare she always had when she thought she was winning, and she shrugged. "Look, Jason, I don't know what you want me to say. Yeah, I was talking to Mike, but it's not like I slept with him, it was just talking. You think I'd betray you like that after everything? You're imagining things. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this." Her tone was dismissive, like she thought I was just overreacting, but I knew better. I'd never been so betrayed in my life. I felt a cold fury building inside me. How could she sit there, lie so effortlessly? How could she pretend that I was just imagining things? I wanted to tear her apart, too. Scream at her to make her admit the truth. But I also knew I had to stay calm, to keep my head clear. What I was feeling was too much to process all at once. I simply told her I needed some time to think, that we'd talk later. I got up, grabbed my keys, and left the house. I needed to get out, to breathe, to figure out my next move. That drive was the longest of my life. I kept replaying everything in my head, feeling the betrayal like a knife twisting in my gut. I'd trusted her. I'd never suspected she'd do something so cruel, so underhanded. And Mike, my best friend, how could he do this? How could he betray me, betray our friendship, just for some quick sex and some secret DMs? I felt like I'd been punched in the chest over and over again. I didn't know if I was more pissed or heartbroken, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine anymore. I had to decide whether I was going to fight for us or cut my losses. And honestly, I wasn't sure I had it in me to save what was left of this mess. I spent the rest of that day trying to keep myself together. It was a roller coaster, anger, sadness, disbelief, all hitting me in waves. I knew I needed to think clearly about what I was going to do next, but honestly, everything felt like a blur. I kept replaying that moment, her lies, her sneers, the way she dismissed everything I brought up like I was just overreacting. It was so clear she'd been lying from the start, twisting her stories, trying to make me doubt my own instincts. That bitchy attitude of hers, her smart-ass comments, they suddenly made so much sense now. She'd been manipulating me the whole time, hiding her affair in plain sight. I decided I couldn't confront her again that day without a plan. I needed to get more proof, something irrefutable, and I needed to think about how to handle this without losing my mind. I went back to the house later that evening trying to act normal, but the moment I stepped inside, the air was thick with tension. She greeted me with that fake, innocent smile she always threw on when she knew she was hiding something. I didn't say much. Just kept my cool, but I made sure to keep her in my sights. As the night wore on, I started scouring her social media accounts, more specifically her messengers. I wanted to see if she'd slipped up or left any breadcrumbs behind. I knew she'd probably try to delete things, but I also knew how women like her think. They're cocky, arrogant, convinced they can cover their tracks. I looked through her Instagram, her Facebook, and her private messaging apps, and sure enough, I found more evidence. There were additional messages from Mike, some now deleted but recoverable through a backup app I had installed on my phone. They'd been talking about meeting in secret, about sneaking around, and she'd even mentioned feeling alive when she was with him. I felt like I was losing my mind. This wasn't just some fling she was hiding. It was a full-blown affair. They'd been doing this for a while, and she'd lied to my face every step of the way. The betrayal hit me so hard I needed to sit down. How could she look me in the eyes and lie so blatantly? How did I miss all the signs? All those little things, her secretive phone habits, her coldness, the way she'd snap at me, were actually clues all along. I kept looking for more. I even started going through her emails and her cloud storage. I wanted everything, the proof that I needed to confront her properly, to show her I wasn't some fool who'd been played. I found more messages, photos of her in provocative poses, texts where she was clearly flirting, even talking about how excited she was to see Mike again. I scoffed, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. I'd always thought we had something real, something solid. Now I saw it was just a lie, a facade she put on to keep me from catching her. That night I sat in my car outside her house, staring at the window and thinking about everything I'd uncovered. It was a sickening feeling, knowing she'd been sneaking around behind my back, lying, cheating, and playing me like a fool. I thought about all those nights I stayed awake, wondering if I was imagining things. Turns out I was. It was all real, and I knew then I had to decide whether I'd stay and fight or walk away for good. The pain was so raw, so intense, I wasn't sure I'd survive this. But I knew one thing: I'd never trust her again, not after all this. She lied, she'd betrayed me, and she'd made her choice, and I was about to make mine. The next morning, I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. The evidence was staring me in the face, screaming at me to act. I made the decision. I was going to confront Lauren, but on my terms. I needed her to face her lies, to hear what I had to say, and I needed to make her understand that her manipulation had gone too far. I woke up early, gathered all the proof I had, screenshots, saved messages, pictures, and slipped them into an envelope. I didn't want to do this in a heated moment. I wanted her to see everything laid out clearly, no room for her to deny it anymore. When she finally woke up, I was already sitting in the living room. She looked surprised to see me so early, her bitchy smirk already forming. "What's going on, Jason? Why are you acting like this?" She sneered, trying to sound innocent. I took a deep breath. I told her I knew everything about her affair with Mike, the secret messages, the pictures. I told her I had proof she couldn't deny. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She spun her usual lies. "You're overreacting. You don't understand what this was about. It was just sex," and tried to deflect, to minimize what she'd done. But I cut her off. I threw the envelope on the table and told her she could lie all she wanted, but the truth was right there. Her face twisted, anger bubbling up, and she snapped back. "You're crazy. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I didn't do anything wrong." That's when I saw the true her, the bitchy, contemptuous side that she always kept under wraps when she thought she was in control. It was like a switch flipped and her voice became sharper, more dismissive. I told her I was done, that this wasn't just a fling, it was a betrayal I couldn't forgive. I said I'd already contacted a lawyer, that I was looking into divorce, and that I wanted her out of my life for good. Her response: a bitter laugh followed by more lies. "You're just overreacting because you're insecure," she spat. "You think I'm just some slut. You're the one who's been gone for so long. You don't know what it's like to be alone. I needed someone to talk to, someone who actually cares." Her words hit me like a punch. She tried to make me feel guilty, to turn my anger into guilt, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. The room was dead silent after I finished talking. I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes, but she masked it quickly with that bitchy smirk. I knew she'd try to manipulate me, try to make me doubt myself or spin her lies even further. But I also knew I couldn't be played anymore. I told her I'd be staying temporarily in a friend's place while I figured out what to do, that she was no longer welcome in my house. I didn't want her to think she could walk all over me. My mind was made up. I was ending this, and I was done with her lies. As she stormed out, calling me a crazy, jealous husband, I sat there feeling a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. The immediate aftermath was brutal: anger, sadness, disbelief. I realized I'd been living in a dream, convinced that we had something real. Turns out she'd been cheating on me with my best friend all along, and I had been blind to it. The betrayal was so deep, so damaging, I wondered how I'd ever trust again. But I also knew I had no choice but to move forward. The pain was overwhelming, but I had to face it head on. I'd lost someone I loved, but I wasn't going to let her destroy me completely. Not without a fight. In the days that followed, everything felt like a blur. I stayed with a friend trying to get some clarity, but the pain kept gnawing at me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, that bitchy smirk, her lies, her betrayal. It's crazy how someone you trusted can turn into a stranger so fast. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let her manipulate me for so long. But honestly, I was devastated, more than I wanted to admit, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I hadn't told anyone the full story yet, just a few close friends who knew I was deployed and that Lauren was waiting at home. I felt embarrassed, angry, humiliated. How could I have been so blind? I kept replaying that night at the party, her sneaky glances, her dismissive attitude. She'd been cheating on me right under my nose, and I'd never even suspected. I had been so damn naive, thinking I was doing everything to provide for her, to keep her happy, and instead she was out there screwing Mike, my best friend. The worst part: they'd been doing it for months, maybe longer. One thing that kept bothering me was her constant denial. Whenever I confronted her, she'd throw it back in my face, call me insecure or paranoid. But now I knew better. Her lies had been so smooth, so convincing. She'd made me doubt myself for so long. It was like she had this way of twisting everything around, making me feel like I was the one overreacting, like I was the problem. That bitchy attitude, her sharp tongue, it all made sense now. It was her way of deflecting, of covering up what she was really doing. I finally decided I needed closure. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, not after finding all that proof. I wanted her to understand how much she'd hurt me, how much her betrayal had shattered everything. So I called her, told her I wanted to meet, just her, no one else. She hesitated but eventually agreed, probably thinking I'd try to salvage whatever was left. When she showed up at the cafe, she looked smug, like she still thought she could spin her lies and walk away unscathed. I sat across from her, took a deep breath, and laid it all out. I played her messages, showed her the screenshots. Her eyes widened as she realized I had everything. I told her how deeply she'd hurt me, how she'd broken my trust, and that I knew she'd been lying all along. Her response: a sneer and more excuses, how she needed space, how she was struggling, how she was just trying to cope. She spun her usual victim story, trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her that I didn't want to be with someone who could lie so easily, who could screw my best friend behind my back. I said I was done, that I was filing for divorce, and that I'd be better off without her. Her face twisted with anger, then with contempt. She called me names, accused me of being crazy, obsessed, insecure. But I just looked at her and said that her actions spoke for themselves, that she'd lost everything with me. I told her to pack her shit and get out of my life for good. That confrontation was the last straw. It was brutal, but it was necessary. I knew I'd lost her, and honestly, part of me felt relief. Relief that the truth was out. Relief that I no longer had to pretend everything was fine. But underneath, the pain still lingered. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd betrayed me so thoroughly I wondered if I'd ever recover. Every time I thought about her, those images of her with Mike, her lies, her bitchy attitude, they haunted me. But I understood now that I had to cut her loose, no matter how much it hurt. As I packed up my things, I realized I'd learned something vital. Never ignore the small signs, never dismiss that gut feeling. If something feels off, it usually is. And trust is everything. Once it's broken, it's almost impossible to fix. I also learned that revenge isn't always about doing something destructive. Sometimes it's about finally taking control, standing up for yourself, and walking away. I'd lost the girl I loved, but I was gaining my life back piece by piece. And I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to start healing. The days turned into weeks, and every morning I woke up with a mix of relief and bitterness clawing at my insides. I'd gone from a guy who thought his marriage was solid to someone who'd been played, lied to, and used. But the one thing I refused to let take me down was the idea that I was weak or that I'd failed. No, that was her doing, her lies, her manipulations. The trust I'd placed in her was shattered, but I was still here, still standing. I realized that the most important thing now was to rebuild myself, to find a way to move on, even if that meant starting from scratch. The process hasn't been easy. Some nights I lie awake, replaying all the betrayals, trying to understand how someone I loved could be so cold and selfish. But I also know I've learned a lot about myself through all this. I learned to listen to my instincts, to trust my gut, and most importantly, to value my own happiness above all else. I've come to see that sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do. That holding on to someone who's hurt you repeatedly isn't strength, it's a mistake. I've also cut ties with Mike. I don't need a friend or a brother who would do something so cruel. That betrayal was the final nail in the coffin of what I thought was genuine friendship. I don't harbor hatred for him. I just see him for what he is now. A guy who threw away a friendship over some quick sex and got involved in a lie that destroyed 2 lives. As much as it hurts, I know I'll be better off without that kind of toxicity in my life. Most importantly, I've started focusing on myself. I got therapy, something I should have done long before all this. Talking things out helped me process the anger and sadness, and slowly, I started to rebuild my confidence. I'm back at the gym, working on my body and mind. I've reached out to old friends, reconnected with family. The pain is still there, but it's less sharp now. Time does heal, even if it doesn't erase everything. Looking back, I realize I'll never fully forget what she did, but I will learn to live with it. I won't let her define me, nor will I allow her betrayal to strip away my sense of worth. I now see that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and proving to yourself that you're stronger than the pain. That's what I've done. So, for anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts, don't ignore the signs, and don't be afraid to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve your trust. You'll survive. You'll heal. And one day you'll look back and be thankful you got out before things got worse. Life's too short for lies, betrayal, and bitchy manipulations. Be brave, be kind to yourself, and never settle for anything less than honesty and respect. That's what I've learned, and that's what I'll carry with me as I move forward.